Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into something I'm sure you've all heard about, especially if you're listening to this show,
Hmm.
STEM careers. Like get a STEM degree, secure your future, that whole narrative.
Right, right.
But what if that's not the whole picture?
Yeah.
You sent me some excerpts that focus on a potential STEM worker surplus, and
Okay.
I gotta say, I'm really intrigued to dig into this with you.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating paradox when you think about it.
It is.
We keep hearing about these critical shortages in STEM fields,
Right.
but then at the same time, you see all these reports about qualified STEM graduates
Yeah.
really struggling to find jobs, good jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And these excerpts you sent, STEM worker surplus, a capitalist strategy to suppress wages.
Mhm.
They take a pretty bold stance, like suggesting that this surplus might be intentional.
Yeah.
And to unpack this idea, they bring in Marx and Engels,
Yeah.
specifically their idea of the reserve army of labor. So I think before we get too far, maybe we could start with explaining how that concept
Yeah.
connects to this whole potential STEM surplus.
Sure. Sure. It's actually a theory that you can apply to way more than just STEM fields.
Okay.
It's basically, Marx and Engels argue that capitalism kind of thrives on
Okay.
having this pool of surplus labor, like a reserve army,
Mm-hmm.
just ready and waiting to fill any open positions.
Right. Okay.
And this oversupply,
Yeah.
they said, is what keeps wages down and gives employers more leverage.
So applying that to STEM, the article is suggesting that maybe this push for STEM education,
Mhm.
which seems good on the surface, right,
Right.
could actually be adding to this reserve army
Yes.
of STEM graduates.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the author's arguing that it's not just about,
Yeah.
encouraging people to follow their passions for science and tech. It could be about manipulating the labor market
Right.
to benefit, those who are already in power.
Which, honestly, that sends chills down my spine a little bit.
Yeah.
I think most people, when they're encouraging young people to go into STEM careers,
Hmm.
I think they genuinely believe they're doing the right thing.
Oh, yeah.
But this article really digs deep, bringing in like historical analysis,
Hmm.
economic theory, even critiques of the education system.
Yeah, and it's not all just theoretical.
Right.
Like the article cites this 2015 study
Okay.
by Zhu and Larson,
Okay.
and they found these huge imbalances in the STEM labor market.
Yeah.
Like some areas
Right.
legitimately have shortages,
Yeah.
but then other areas have way too many qualified grads.
Right. And that makes you wonder, like, who's benefiting from that uneven distribution?
Yeah.
Like, if companies actually needed more STEM workers,
Right.
wouldn't they be, like, dying to hire all these grads who can't find jobs?
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a key question that the article asks.
Yeah.
And to kind of go further with this, illustrating this point,
Mm-hmm.
they talk about the H-1B visa program.
Right. So that's the program that allows U.S. companies to hire foreign workers, right?
Yeah.
In specific occupations.
Mhm.
And a lot of times that's in STEM fields.
A lot of times, yeah.
And the justification is usually that there just aren't enough qualified American workers.
Right.
But this article is saying, like, that's not always true.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They point to this research by Stevenson from 2014
Yeah. Okay.
that really challenges those shortage claims.
Okay.
Like, his findings suggest that this H-1B program
Yeah.
might actually be used to, in some cases,
Yeah.
drive down wages and replace American workers with foreign workers who will take lower salaries.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer to this, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like this push for STEM education is creating this pool of like
Right.
domestic workers.
Hmm.
And then the H-1B program is bringing in potentially
Yeah.
more competition from abroad,
Competent.
all vying for the same jobs.
And all this is happening, like, while technology is changing the nature of work itself.
Right. And that's the thing that blows my mind. We're told to go into STEM for job security.
Right.
But then the pace of technology
Yeah.
is actually making a lot of these STEM skills obsolete. Like,
Right.
so quickly.
Yeah, the article even cites research by Deming and Norrie
Okay.
from 2018, and they looked at how automation and AI are actually shortening career lifespans in STEM.
It's almost like the system's setting people up for disappointment.
Yeah.
It's like, go get that STEM degree. Oh, and by the way, a robot might take your job in a few years.
Yeah,
It's a sobering thought.
it is.
Yeah.
And it's really concerning, when you think about
Yeah.
the pressure on young people these days
Mhm.
to choose a career path so early on.
That's where I think this deep dive gets even more interesting
Mhm.
because it doesn't just stop at, like, the economic analysis,
Mm-hmm.
it goes on to critique the education system itself, like questioning this whole idea of double the number of STEM graduates, which that's an idea popularized by Teitelbaum back in 2006.
Right.
But like, is churning out more and more STEM grads actually the solution?
Right.
Or is it making the problem worse?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
And the article argues that, this focus on STEM might be contributing to the surplus,
Right.
which, like we said, benefits corporations
Yeah.
more than workers.
So are we basically training young people to become like
Mm-hmm.
cogs in this capitalist machine rather than helping them develop their full potential as individuals?
Yeah, I mean, it can sound pretty bleak when you put it that way.
That does sound kind of bleak.
But
Yeah.
I think, we should try to keep the bigger picture in mind.
Okay.
Because the article does bring in like some fascinating sociological research
Okay.
to help us understand how education and the economy are connected.
Okay.
Like they cite Bowles
Okay.
from back in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And he argued that education systems
Mm-hmm.
often function to regulate the flow of labor,
Okay.
like making sure their workers trained for the jobs that,
Right.
capital needs.
So it's not just about learning for the sake of learning.
Right.
It's about preparing people for very specific roles in this predetermined economic structure.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the article builds on this
Mm-hmm.
with Fussy's research from 2008.
Okay.
And he highlights how, like,
Yeah.
this emphasis on market demands can overshadow
Yeah.
what might really be best
Right.
for, individuals or society.
Which that brings up such an interesting point. Like, if the education system is mostly geared toward serving the market, what does that mean for the individuals who have different aspirations or different talents?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a really great question. And it's one that the article explores in depth.
Okay.
Like, it really gets into how this focus on market demands can lead to the commodification of education, where students are kind of treated like products to be, shaped and molded to fit the economy.
Okay, I think before we get too deep into that, though, I think we should pause for a second.
Okay.
And reflect on what we've talked about so far.
Sure.
Like this idea of a STEM worker surplus being like intentionally created and perpetuated.
Yeah.
And the potential role of the education system in all of this.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process, honestly.
It is, yeah. It raises a lot of big questions about, how we see education and work and the future of society.
Yeah, definitely. Huge questions.
Huge questions.
Okay, well, maybe we can take a break here and come back to this.
Sounds good.
In the next part of our deep dive.
All right.
So we'll see you back here soon.
See you then.
To continue this conversation.
Looking forward to it.
So, one thing that really stuck with me was this concept of
commodification of education.
Yeah.
It's a term you hear a lot.
Right.
But this article really puts it into perspective.
It's a powerful way to describe what's really happening, I think.
Yeah.
They draw a lot on the work of Bowles and Juntas.
Okay.
Specifically their book from 1981.
Okay.
Where they analyze how education systems can actually perpetuate capitalist labor relations. Yeah. They argue that students are often treated as like commodities, to be shaped and molded according to what the market needs.
It's almost like we're trained to think of ourselves as products. Yeah. And like our value is determined by how well we fit into the demands of the economy.
That's a really good way to put it, yeah. And to further illustrate this, the article brings in research by Greaves and others from 2007, which looks at the neoliberal shift in education.
Right, where it's seen more as a commodity than like a public good.
This shift has real-world consequences.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's not just theoretical.
No. They point to Auerbach's work from 2016.
Okay.
And he highlights how this system often masks exploitation as opportunity.
Right.
Like, students are lured into certain fields like STEM with these promises of high-paying jobs, secure futures. Yeah. But as we've been discussing, the reality can be quite different.
Right, because then they end up in debt, facing this oversaturated job market. And they're competing so fiercely for these coveted positions.
And all of this, the article argues, benefits corporations.
Right.
They get this pool of highly skilled, but potentially desperate workers who are willing to,
take lower wages,
fewer benefits.
Right.
It can be a really tough system to navigate.
Especially, I imagine, for young people who are just starting out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to figure out
their places.
Where they sit in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the article doesn't, shy away from that.
Mm-hmm.
It brings up this recent research by Aken and others from 2023.
Okay.
And they found that while STEM education can open doors for some, for many it leads to, oversupply in certain fields.
Right.
And ironically, more unemployment.
Whoa, which is so interesting.
It's a cruel paradox.
It's like go into STEM for stability.
Yeah.
But the system is creating instability.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes you wonder, what is the solution?
Right.
If more STEM degrees isn't the answer, then what is?
Yeah, it's the question we should all be asking.
Yeah.
And while the article doesn't, offer any easy answers, it does point to some potential ways forward. Like, one of the most compelling things is the importance of adaptability.
Adaptability. How does that tie into the STEM surplus?
Well, the article makes this interesting connection back to Engels.
Okay.
While he was critical of capitalism, he also saw problems with, specialization, especially with how fast technology changes.
So instead of focusing on, super specific knowledge in one field, it's about developing, a broader skill set. That allows you to kind of adapt to different things.
Yeah, to different situations.
Yeah.
And maybe even change to totally new fields.
Right.
If you need to.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how a liberal arts education can help with that.
Exactly, yeah.
Build those skills.
And I know for some people, the idea of, a liberal arts degree might seem risky.
Right,
especially if you want a STEM career.
Yeah.
But honestly, those soft skills are becoming more and more valuable to employers across all kinds of industries.
So it's not about choosing one or the other.
Right.
It's about understanding how they can work together.
Exactly.
STEM and liberal arts.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to make those connections.
Mm-hmm.
You could major in something that blends both.
Okay.
Like environmental studies.
Right.
Or science communication.
Okay, yeah.
Or you could minor in something that interests you.
That you're passionate about.
Yeah, even if it's not directly related to your major.
I think that's a great point. A minor is a good way to explore different passions, broaden your horizons, add something extra to your resume.
Exactly. And don't underestimate extracurriculars, internships, volunteer work.
Yeah.
All of that
can
give you skills and connections that you won't get in class.
It's about getting experience outside of the classroom.
Yeah, exploring different options.
Yeah.
And showing what you can do.
Okay.
And I think it's important to remember that your education doesn't stop.
Right.
When you graduate. Things are changing so fast that you have to keep learning.
Right. Lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning, yeah.
Essential.
It's essential.
So even if you do start in a purely technical field, you can
always branch out.
Yeah. Find opportunities to keep learning, to grow in other areas.
So be curious.
Yeah.
Be proactive. Embrace learning as a journey.
Absolutely.
Not a destination.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing to take away from all of this, is that you have the power to make your own future.
Right.
Don't let anyone put you in a box or tell you.
You have to follow one specific path.
It's about knowing your own strengths and passions and then figuring out how to use those to create a meaningful career.
Yeah, meaningful life.
And life.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Exactly. And that's something to work towards.
Yeah.
No matter what you do.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really great point.
It is.
I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Yeah. Looking forward to continuing this.
Yeah, me too. We're going to take a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
And then we'll be back with the final part
of
our deep dive into STEM worker surplus.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we've been talking about the STEM surplus and the commodification of education and how important adaptability is, especially these days.
Yeah.
What can our listeners actually do to make sure they're not, Just becoming another cog in the machine.
It's a question I think about a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm talking to students or young professionals. And there's no easy answer, no one size fits all. But I always say, like, be proactive.
Okay.
Be intentional about your education and your career.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, I think first you got to do your research.
Okay.
You know, really understand the field that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Don't just, like, go with the hype.
Right.
Or the promises of big salaries.
Yeah.
Look at the data. Talk to people who actually work in those fields.
Okay.
Get a real sense of like what the job market's like.
Perfect.
What skills are actually needed.
So be informed. Don't just follow the crowd.
Exactly. And once you kind of have a better handle on the field, you can start thinking about how to stand out.
Okay.
How to develop like a skill set that's, you know, unique.
Yeah.
Makes you different.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? Well, like, especially when everyone's telling you to specialize?
It's about finding that balance between, you know, specializing and also having that breadth.
Okay.
Yeah. You need a good foundation in your field, but you also need those transferable skills.
Like
critical thinking, communication, problem solving, adaptability.
And we talked about how liberal arts can help with that?
Exactly.
Okay.
I know for some people, like a liberal arts degree seems like a risky move.
Right, especially
if you want to go into STEM.
Yeah.
But the truth is, those soft skills they're becoming more and more important to employers everywhere.
So it's not one or the other. It's about how they can work together.
Exactly. And there are lots of ways to connect them.
Yeah.
You could like major in something that blends STEM and liberal arts.
Okay.
Like environmental studies or science communication, or you could minor in something that you're passionate about.
Right, you're interested in,
Even if it's not directly related.
I think that's a good point,
to your major.
Minors are a good way to like explore. Things you're interested in.
And don't forget about like extracurriculars, internships, volunteer work. Those can give you really valuable experience.
Right, outside of the classroom.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that education doesn't stop when you graduate.
It's a lifelong process.
It is. Things are changing so fast.
Right.
You got to keep learning.
Right. You have to stay up to date.
Yeah, lifelong learning is essential.
So even if you start in like
it's a very technical field, you can still
branch out.
Yeah, find opportunities to learn new things, to grow.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Be proactive.
Absolutely.
Embrace learning as a journey, not a destination.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
It is, yeah.
So I guess like the main takeaway from all of this is you have the power.
You do.
To shape your own future.
You have the power.
Don't let anyone tell you you have to fit in a box or follow one specific path.
Don't let them.
It's about like knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at.
What you're passionate about.
And then using that to create a meaningful career and a meaningful life.
Exactly. And that's really something to work towards.
I love that. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I think so, too.
Thank you so much for
of course,
coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
And sharing your insights.
Yeah, absolutely.
On this topic.
Really enjoyed it.
And to our listeners, if you want to explore these ideas further, we'll include links to the source material in the show notes.
Awesome.
So check that out.
Yeah.
And remember, stay curious.
Be curious.
Stay engaged. And never stop learning.
Never stop.
The world needs your unique perspectives.
It does.
And your talents.
Absolutely.
So that's it for today.
Right.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
For another deep dive.